right, welcome to this special edition of the Bono Private Research Podcast. I'm joined here in actually my own house today by a very dear friend and special guest who visited me actually almost a decade ago to this month. And he had under one arm a bottle of Malbec and in his eyes a kind of crazed and frantic look. And over the course of the evening, in a couple of hours and a couple of glasses of that very same bottle, my friend told me about a brand new payment system that he was very, very excited about and in which he was keen to invest. That payment system turned out to be Bitcoin, and the friend is Marcelo Fleischer. So I just want to say, welcome, Marcelo, and thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much. I really like what you do. I like I like your books, your articles, your your podcast.
Well,
I like you.
This should go well then. So I guess one of the first questions everybody wants to know is, one of the linchpin moments of that first conversation that we had was you looked at me sometime late in the night and you said, you know what, Joel, I know this sounds crazy, and maybe it is, but I haven't felt this crazy buying something since I went all in on gold in early 2000s, which, as our listeners being gold bugs will well know, that turned out to be a very spectacular trade. So I guess if you were crazily buying gold in the early 2000s and crazily buying crypto in the beginning of last decade, everyone wants to know, what are you crazy about now, and how can we get some?
Well, we will talk about that later.
Okay.
But first, let's talk about Bitcoin. But why is it important? Why is it special? I think many people look at Bitcoin, stumble upon it, and they don't realize really why it survived this long, and why this is what I think it's like civilization shift in technology, and so they jump instantly to something newer, the newest thing, the brightest or the last coin or whatever. They don't stop and think, okay, why is this working? This they don't usually people don't read the white paper wrote by Satoshi Nakamoto. So it's no surprise that they take it as just another kind of investment. So they don't get why Satoshi made the decision, lots of decisions he made. So
let's maybe we start there. We start at 2008 because it was a very important moment for the global financial community. Obviously, everybody knew what was happening with the global financial crisis, and it wasn't, at least it seems to me, just an accidental happenstance occurrence that Satoshi decided that year and carried that very, very special message in the Genesis block, essentially declaring this is war, and this is the new innovation and the new tools that we're going to bring to that to that battle.
And also, there's a reason why he called it a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and not a gold kind of system, or I don't know, a first layer for another kind of money system, whatever. There's a reason, because gold already failed. So many people think that politicians or central bankers, these guys don't like gold. I don't think so. I think that gold they like because they know they can fail you.
Mm-hmm. And so you're talking, are you talking here about, say, FDR's gold confiscation or the depegging in 1971, so they can set the system up to fail,
of course,
to their advantage. Of
course, they can do it again. Why not? And they now they know exactly how to do it.
And why would we trust them not to do it?
Of course. So it's important to understand many things, and one of those things that I think many people don't get is what kind of monster we are dealing with here. So, and why it behaves the way it behaves. So, fiat money is just the easiest way, the most efficient way that the state has in its hands in order to rob you. Let's be frank. So why? Well, let's start from the why.
So this is
I said
go
I
ahead.
said civilization shifting technology.
Yep.
This is why, because the state always grows faster than the economy. You have this cycle. It's always the same. Not only in the Western civilization. It's not only in Rome, not only in the United States. It's everywhere. It's the same. You have a small state or something like that, and then you have an economy that can grow, grow prosperous, but then the state grows even quicker, and then it all falls down.
And we've seen this from going all the way back to the Greece,
Yeah.
to the Greek
Yeah.
city-state,
Exactly.
the Roman Empire. Yes, we
Yeah.
do. It's not as if we don't have examples of
We have
exactly
examples,
this.
and also in China, in India, there are many examples of this. So we are trapped in this cycle. You have to see the state as it is in order to understand why. If we have a state, we will not be able, I mean, if we have a state that is not constrained in some way, we will not be able to live this cycle. And well, we tried everything in order to constrain the state.
Including gold.
Including gold,
yeah.
Exactly. So we tried to, in some way, tell to these guys, look, or infiltrate it and just stop it from growing in some way. Well, it doesn't work for the same reason that a tumor grows. And it doesn't matter if you say, don't grow or just grow, but stop here. It will not stop. It will keep on growing.
We should
so
also mention at this point you are an oncologist, so you're just talking about just another one of your specialities. Yeah, yeah.
I know what I'm
stick to the metaphor. This is a good one.
So it's
the malignancy of the state. Let's say.
Yeah, and so fiat money is just the most efficient way. It's the way that people are robbed without understanding exactly what's happening. So that's why they use it. So it's important to understand this. I mean, the state can trick you into believing that you have the prosperity is sustainable, even if it's not. If it's related to government intervention, they can sustain that illusion for some time, but it would all fall apart. So that's the reason why it's so important to have a money that reflect scarcity in the real world. So Bitcoin is that kind of money. In that regard, it's similar to gold. I would say even better. But so you can't have a civilization without the virtues that arise from recognizing scarcity. This is the basis. It's not the only condition, but it's a basis.
Yeah.
Then
it's a limit that keeps everything in check, essentially. Runaway at the printing press.
Yeah.
Runaway promises that can't be met, that can't be funded.
And you are killing those virtues that made civilization possible in the first place. So at some point, it cannot sustain itself. So that's why we are trapped, because as long as we have fiat currency, we can have fiat currencies. I think we will keep on having fiat currencies. But if fiat currency is the only, I mean, it's a monopoly. If it's a monopoly in the sense that it cannot be challenged.
And a coercive monopoly as well, not even just a more efficient market-based solution. This is you use it and you pay your taxes in it and you get inflated out of it, or you go to jail. So this is the very worst kind of paramarket monopoly.
Exactly. So in a monopoly, you have a bad kind of service. That's, well, we all know why. There's no competition, but you can force competition. I mean, in the state, competition is bad because into the state, or ¿cómo se dice adentro?
Within,
Well, yeah,
inside.
within.
These,
Sorry.
these are the state-sponsored roads outside that are clustered and
Yeah.
conjecture.
Within the state,
Mhm.
competition is bad because
Mhm.
it's competition for who is the most brilliant guy in manipulating people and using force in order to keep its power and expand its power. So, but you can have competition with the state if you are smart about it. And I think Satoshi was very smart about it. He made the right decision. He made a lot of decisions, and many people don't see the whole system. It's a system of incentives, and that's the only reason it survived. Look at the examples before Bitcoin. We had digital money.
We had e-gold. We
Yeah,
had a
exactly.
few other examples.
Backed by gold. What
Right.
happened to that guy? It was very sad.
Yeah.
The feds just shut it down,
Right.
and he went to jail.
And people wonder why Satoshi might have chosen to remain anonymous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but you can say that even if it's not anonymous, it doesn't matter because it's just code. He's of course. If I had 1 million bitcoins, I wouldn't be talking to you here.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that. But
right. That's exactly what somebody who had 1 million bitcoins would say. You know that, right? Okay, so maybe for people, because
I say 1 million because it's supposed to the number that supposedly Satoshi has.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. But so just for people who want to play a bit of catch up, because you've put a lot on the table for people who maybe know quite a bit about Bitcoin. But let's get back just to sort of put some foundational bricks down with regards to the structure of what we're talking about, so that when, for example, you say a set of incentives, we can frame that for people who might not know just the kind of nuts and bolts of what this is. You know, people see on news stories, they see a shiny little Bitcoin and they think, oh, maybe I should go down to the store and pick one of those things up.
You know,
tell us about what Bitcoin is.
I would like to start by saying I listened to your podcast with Bill Bonner, who I really admire, but I I do not agree with something that he said. He said, look, those early adopters, they just, he gave an example. Let's say I listen to you and you say, look, this is great. And I say, well, what can I lose? I throw $1,000 to this thing that I don't understand.
Yep.
Okay, many people did that. And I can assure you that those people didn't stay, didn't hold,
right?
Because they didn't understand. So usually, what happened to those people is they lost everything because they just didn't take care of their coins, or they sold when they saw, oh, this is like 2x, 5x, 10x. They sold everything because they didn't understand that this was not just a speculative play. No. This has the potential to change everything. And I know it sounds too much, but if you challenge the basis, the root of state power, you're really changing everything. I mean, what's coming next? We don't know, but it will not be similar to what we know.
Right. Well, I mean, if we think that we have, you know, however many thousands of years of history just in gold, since we abandoned seashells and whatever inferior money we were using before that, it's been millennia in the making, this particular advancement of money. So we can probably expect that there's not going to be
and
something to come around in the next 2 years or 5 years.
Exactly. But people don't believe that. Well, it's been so many thousands of years, and at this moment I am alive. It can't be. Yes, it can. Why not? Why not? There were people, I don't know, the first time some guy realized that gold was useful as money. There were people alive, and we are seeing something new here. But remember, I'm talking about the idea of Bitcoin. You have to respect that system of incentives. If you do not respect it, Bitcoin will fail. So that's why we have most people think when you talk about Bitcoin, they think BTC, which is
Mhm.
just a ticker.
Right.
No. Bitcoin is what's written in the white paper.
Okay,
And
so let's
so
drill down
they-
into that then, because it's very important. The wording of it is important. The conceptualization of this particular idea and the faithful implementation of the idea is particularly important. So there's no better person to explain that than you. So help us out.
the new thing in Bitcoin is that you don't have a single point of failure theoretically. I mean, that explains why they had to spend so much resources in order to destroy Bitcoin BTC.
Okay.
So what most people think is Bitcoin is now unusable and it's doomed to fail.
So why is it
So-
unusable? What?
So
I mean, because to be fair, people will look at the price of Bitcoin and they'll say, look, this is $50,000. This is whatever it is. Today will be hopelessly outdated by the end of this conversation. But people will say, here is the clear victor because it shot up however many hundreds of thousands of percent. The others are languishing price-wise. So this system is working. These other so-called altcoins are not working. Why is that not the case?
Well, it's the same thing you could say about an investor in the Madoff pyramid scheme or whatever, Ponzi scheme. It's the same. I mean, if you only are looking at the price, where you can do well or not. You can be unpleasantly surprised also. So you have to understand people that made fortunes in Bitcoin, I think, are people that understood how Bitcoin works and why it can survive state intervention.
Right.
Many people would not want it to work. So why it works? Because you don't have, as in e-gold, for example, a place to go and just shut down. You don't have something backing it,
which is a weakness. It's
a
a point
weakness.
of failure.
Of course. I've heard
flaw, not feature.
Exactly. Like many libertarians used to say, well, if it's backed by gold, maybe I'll consider it. Well, if it's backed by gold, you have a gold.
We've run that experiment.
And eventually it will be shut down.
Doing the same thing.
And e-gold is just one example.
Expecting different results is
it's crazy.
Right? Sure.
So we went through that, and it's just e-gold is one of many other companies that went exactly the day with some excuse they always shut it down, and always shut it down when people start using it. So this is important.
Right. When it becomes a threat.
When it becomes a threat, or at least the radar start to detect it.
Right.
But e-gold was, even if it was somewhat popular between, I don't know, libertarians and goldbacks, it was this little thing when it was shut down. And Bitcoin kept growing and growing and growing. So there's something different. You have to ask yourself why it is not being shut down. Well, there's no place. I mean, this is decentralized. It's just code, but it's protected by what we call miners. So the miners use their computing power in order to protect the network. And why are they incentivized to do it? Well, because they get coins when they mine. These coins are somewhat related to the power that they invest in the network. So that's the way. And also mining is decentralized. I mean, you can do this mining thing whatever you are. It doesn't matter. Maybe you are in a particular location where it's, I don't know, forbidden, or it's more expensive. Whatever, you can go to other places. So there are miners everywhere.
At this point, it would shutting it down would necessitate something we've never seen before, and we probably shouldn't expect, which is the agreement of all world governments to get together and say, we're coming after that thing. Which
there's an alternative to that, and we will get to that. What can they do and what they did? So, but it's important to understand that Bitcoin, the reward that these miners get is going down. It's dwindling. Is the word. So every 4 years, it's cut in half.
And another half is coming up in
Yeah. It's
a million coins or something.
exactly. But if this is happening, and this will happen because it's ingrained in the code, in the protocol. So, how will the miners will be incentivized in the future when you do not have this reward for miners? So this is a very important question, and Satoshi addressed this not only in the white paper. He was very active in the forums. He used to debate a lot, and he explained this many times to many people. Yes, this can scale.
Right.
This can scale, and scaling is important because we're talking about money. You cannot have a kind of money that shits itself every time people try to use it.
Yes.
So it's like it's like having gold. I have this gold coin, and I say, well, if many people use it, this will rot. It doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Or I cannot divide it.
Right.
It loses
has to be fungible,
property.
has to be durable.
Yeah.
These other characteristics. Yes.
Yeah. In Bitcoin, it's better if you have more people using it. It gets better because of networks effects.
Right.
So again, let's go back to the incentives. What Satoshi said. Satoshi said, we will not have this reward for miners because this is just to start the system. But we will have, if it's successful, if Bitcoin is successful, we will have millions and millions of transactions. And every transaction will pay a small fee. And a fee that you will not feel. It's almost nothing.
Not like a regular bank fee.
Not a regular, not like BTC fees.
Right.
Yeah. Which is much more than regular banks today. And it will be more. This is by design. So you can have a network of high volume transaction with low fees. And this was the original idea.
Right.
So there's people that do not agree. But initially, and I'm telling you, I'm in this forum since 2010, this opinion was almost inexistent. Almost everyone agreed with Satoshi that Bitcoin could scale.
And it could scale because of the multi-tiered incentives. First, the mining incentives that those securing the network were paid, not a dividend, but for investing their computing power at their cost. They were paid out a reward in Bitcoin, and then after it had achieved some kind of critical mass, then the reward comes from transaction fees that are passed out to the participants in the network.
But this is not just Satoshi's opinion. This is necessary for Bitcoin to survive.
Right.
In the long term. So there was many.
So this is almost unanimous at this early stage.
Almost unanimous.
And then.
And many people think that this is a technical debate. It is not. The changes that were made to Bitcoin BTC are economical in nature. And what they did was they stopped the possibility of Bitcoin scaling
beyond the mining payouts.
To serve the world.
Okay.
I mean, why do you have to pay, I don't know, $20, $50, $60 today to make a Bitcoin transaction? Because these guys made these decisions. They stopped Bitcoin from scaling.
So when you talk about these guys, for example,
the new guys.
Okay, very good. Because I want to get to this because I think for a lot of people who hear on the one hand, oh, we have this decentralized money. There's no Fed. There's no board of directors. There's no centralized, group of people calling the shots. That's what they hear when they hear certain people making an argument for cryptocurrencies, as opposed to the existing system of central banking that we have. And then they hear something like, but these guys, this nefarious group of people who are calling the shots or whatever. So explain the difference and how do we square that circle? What are we talking about there?
When I say these guys, I'm referring to the group of people that, let's say, hijacked Bitcoin development. This is, I mean, this can be, I think that 10 years from now, or 5 years maybe, it will be obvious to everyone. Because I mean, this is not something I've read about. I suffered it.
Yes.
But the good news, I would come back to this guy. The good news is that you can fork the system. I mean, you can, and this is what happened.
That's F-O-R-K for everyone listening at home. You can fork the system.
Yeah. Fork. This is not possible with fiat money. I mean, you are subjected to whatever kind of money that your government forces you to use. You cannot say, no, I will fork the peso and would make this. Everyone that has pesos in his pocket would also have this another kind of peso, see, which doesn't, which is not subject to inflation. Let's say.
Do you want to quickly, just quickly explain forking for people who are unfamiliar with?
This is something that is normal in when we're talking about open source code, where you can say, let's say there's a disagreement, and then, okay, you can split. We're talking about money, so the split is not always nice, but you can split and say, okay, from now on, I will do this kind of thing, and you can do, you can have your roadmap, and I have mine.
So in the case of Bitcoin, for example, there's a blockchain, goes all the way back to the Genesis block. There is a shared history of transactions, and then when there's a disagreement, if there's a disagreement, and there have been some, and there will be more, then the chain can split. The shared history remains common to both of those coin holders or asset holders, and then they get whatever the split is.
You have both. You have coins in both chains. So this is the case with, for example, Bitcoin Cash. And Bitcoin, it's not that Bitcoin Cash is a copy of Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin. It's blockchain. Go back to the first block. The same as Bitcoin BTC. It's just a split. So going back to your question. So what happened was something I wasn't sure what will happen. This was growing too quickly, and it was like too good to be true. At some point,
so we're talking 2014, 2013, 2014, something like that.
Before
the split.
My thought is just since 2011, 12, I was always thinking, what will they do? Because they will not just let it grow. No. So there were many possibilities, and this was a topic usually debated in these forums. I was not prepared for what actually happened, but I can tell you, they prepared for this many years. I mean, you can I remembering what happened before. They started by presenting themselves as the saviors of Bitcoin. They said Bitcoin cannot scale. This was very controversial. Nobody thought that way. Nobody believed them. But this was the. But no, don't worry. We will make it scale. There's a company. It's called Blockstream. So they many guys that let's say thought they lost the train, but they were very knowledgeable about informatic systems and computational systems and I don't know, cryptography, these kind of things. Many of these guys thought Satoshi was crazy. His idea was not. It was one of these guys said, "This is mathematically impossible. It's a mathematical impossibility." So they were not against, but they just let it pass.
Mhm.
So mm, then they realized that perhaps they were wrong, and doesn't matter who they are, but I think it does matter who was financing this company, because then you will see why.
You can follow the money back to the
Yeah,
their incentives.
yeah, of course. So they bought the forums, they bought the media, the most important. They bought the developers, the developers that were not corrupted or corruptible. They were ejected, and that way they they managed to impose a new narrative.
Mhm.
So people that came after this takeover, they they don't think that this is. I mean, we aren't talking about just censorship. We're talking about uh, expelling like 99% of people from the forums.
Wow.
I mean, this is this is
It's like a hostile takeover at this point.
absolutely. And
What year are we talking here? This has got to be 2014, 15?
Yeah, 14. They said, "Hi, we are here for your own good.
Hi, we're from the government. We're here to help."
we are
Yeah,
we are
that
here
old
to
line.
help." And I can tell. Look, I have this. Look, this Blockstream company was backed by, uh, for example, the one of the companies that funded Blockstream was AXA Group.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're
Yep.
familiar with this.
We were having discussions about this, I remember,
Hmm.
at the time, but yeah.
And then you have the Digital Currency Group. This includes MasterCard at the time. I don't know now. Western Union. But this is all. I mean, this is not a conspiracy theory.
But Marcelo, what possible reason would Mastercard and Western Union have to halt someone that's coming to eat their lunch? But yeah, so we had a quorum of bad actors, let's say, that infiltrated this experiment in cryptography and free market money. So the short-term outcome of that was that we had what we were talking about before. We had a fork in the blockchain from BTC, Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin Cash. Take us from there. What's
Yeah. So the most controversial topic here was the famous block size. No, Satoshi had explicitly said he made specific instructions how it would be lifted. This block size. The block is just a block of transactions. If you have a cap on this block, you have a cap. This block of transactions, you have a cap on the amount of transactions that the network can process.
So he recognized that as the volume of transactions expanded and Bitcoin adoption grew in different marketplaces, then we would have to have some kind of mechanism by which to accommodate for those additional transactions.
Exactly, and this is the same mechanism. This is a new mechanism. It isn't, and he was not referring to something new. He was referring to the block size. It was capped because at some point Bitcoin did not have value. I mean, economical value. So it was necessary to avoid people just spamming the network with without having to pay for that.
Right.
So, but before leaving, Satoshi said, "No, look, this limit it's just transitory. It's
it's something that is."
It's not.
It's not written in stone.
Yeah. No. It's just for now, and we can eliminate it completely. He didn't say we can put another limit. He said it doesn't matter as long as people are using the network.
It's
and
market
paying a small
dependent, and it will evolve and adapt as
exactly.
necessary.
So you have to understand that on the one side, you have a market here. On the one side, you have the miners, which they are offering space in blocks. This is the good that they are offering the user. And then you have the user. User is buying, let's say, this space in the block for a transaction, and they pay with a fee.
Right.
So if you have an arbitrary cap in the size of the block, you have an arbitrary cap in the number of transactions. So you change the economic model.
So I'm trying to think of a of a kind of real world example for our listeners who are getting their head around a bunch of new terms here. But tell me if is it something akin to and this will be a crude analogy, but something akin to say an artificial supply shortage imposed on a market, a De Beers diamond kind of thing, where they say we're going to artificially choke off the supply of a good, i.e., space in this case, to the market in order to, and we'll have that be the sole provider of the market, jack up the price, but not actually offer any competition, any expansion, any development, any adaptation.
It's exactly that. But the problem is that the results. So it's like ¿cómo se dice? Subasta, auction. It's the result is like it isn't even a normal auction. It's a blind auction because you're when you make a Bitcoin BTC transaction, you pay the fee, and you don't know if your transaction will, even if you pay a monstrous fee, you don't know if your transaction will be confirmed in the next block. Because if other people pay more or a little bit more, well, your transaction will be ejected from the block.
Oh, okay.
And then you can be waiting for days for your transaction. So it's not only it's unpredictable. It's not only expensive, crazy expensive. It's unpredictable. So what these people say? Well, but this is just the first layer. You can use a second layer for your small transactions. Like, this is not for you.
So they would say this is for people who are storing, saving their Bitcoin. But if you want to use the transactional network, there are off-chain solutions that we will provide.
Exactly. So the problem is that even if you are just an investor, let's say you want to put, I don't know, $100 or even much more, and you have to pay, let's say, $50 fee because someone has to pay these fees. And you are, I mean, so many use cases are out of the picture. Almost every, except rich investors. This is their goal. And when I say this is no, these fees are high, you have to understand that they are not working. Many people think they are working. This is just a technical issue. No, they are cheering high fees because they think
it's exclusionary to.
This is what they say. We need high fees, and I mean thousands of dollars, in order for Bitcoin to be a store of value. This is what they think. We need it to be very, very high and to be used, this first layer, by few people in order to work properly. So they say that this guarantees decentralization because it's easier for you to have a node at your home, which is crazy because you will not use a system if you have a node.
You don't want 10 people with a node in their home. You want tens of thousands, hundreds of millions of people around the world having partial access to a
they
network,
say,
right?
Yeah, they say that they want more nodes, but all those people, and so it has to be cheap to run a node. But why will you run a node of a network that you cannot use? So
right.
So it's it doesn't make sense. So they say no, but don't worry, you can use this second layer. Problem is that again, you cannot escape economic
Reality, yeah.
economic reality. So if you want to enter this second layer, you have to pay a fee in the first layer. You or someone has to pay that fee. And then when you abandon this second layer and you go back to the first layer, again you have to pay a fee. And then you may have to pay fees again when you are in the second layer. It doesn't matter why, but let's say you have to pay 2 fees in order to get access and then return to the first layer. What 2 fees? If we're talking about $1,000 fee, uh, who will be using that? Well, the answer is you will not use it. You will have to use it through a middleman. So I am your bank, or probably they will call it another way, and I will use this second layer, and I will sell you the access to this second layer.
So this is the classic reinsertion of the middleman
Exactly.
into a system that originated in order to get rid of the middleman in the first place.
Exactly.
So there is a solution to this, and it was the original solution,
Of course.
which so for people who are listening on and hearing about thousands of $1,000 fees, etc., might rightly be thinking, okay, well then how is this going to be adopted around the world for people who want to buy a cup of coffee, or who want to take an Uber ride, or who want to buy a plane ticket even?
Many people don't know, but in Argentina, we were on our way to mass adoption. I mean, and I was participating in that. By the way, I'm very disappointed on many people that were part of this, let's call it movement, because at first, and I mean 2012, 11, 12, 13, 14, let's say, we were out there explaining, educating, and
I remember that very first Bitcoin conference down here.
Yeah, remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the people were very enthusiastic about this, and many people were accepting Bitcoin. I used to buy everything. I used to buy my, I don't know, clothes and food, and even outside the internet. I could buy many things, and I did it frequently.
Right. And people don't appreciate that in a country like Argentina, where there is, I don't know what the official rate of inflation is now. It's supposedly something like 50%, but everybody knows it's quite an order of magnitude higher than that. But that in economies like Argentina, the people are uniquely predisposed to understand the realities of inflationary economics in a way that I think people in maybe Australia or England or what have you are not quite as sensitive to.
That's why people embraced it. It was not very difficult to explain the benefits of Bitcoin back then to any ¿cómo se dice?
Any negocio, any business, any peso user,
any peso
anyone who
user.
used the peso, and then you can present them with almost anything, and they're going to be open-eared.
and the fees were not a problem back then.
Yeah,
but then the fees started to jump like crazy. I mean, it was 1 cent. It was considered okay, but that's it. Then we went to when we start to stumble upon this limit, this block size limit. Well, the fees went 50 cents, $1, and many dollars, and it was impossible to use. And so all these people that adopted Bitcoin and that were more than ready for it, they stopped adopting it because they started to have lots of problems.
And we're talking about businesses in particular at this point. From a commercial perspective, it was you're waiting for 3 days for a confirmation. The fees are prohibitive. Customers don't want to use it.
And people are I mean, people don't understand what's happening, so they get mad at the shop owner or even services on the internet. They just stop accepting. For example, we had at some point Microsoft, and well, many other companies, Steam. We had many companies that started accepted Bitcoin and then they
And
stopped
then went back, yeah.
accepting Bitcoin. And to this day, they do not accept cryptocurrencies. Many of these companies. It was a really shitty experience. And people were really mad at them, and they were not responsible for the problems. So, but the solution was always there. This
I feel like that was an abusive, pardon me for interrupting, but an abusive faith that people who had already taken the jump to get out of fiat
exactly
and into crypto. It was a little bit Wild West, so people were already kind of thinking they might have been a little bit suspicious, but in the interest of good faith, I will give this a go. And once they got burned once, I feel like a lot of people were very reticent to go back into that market because it felt scammy after that.
Exactly, and I think that was the idea.
Yeah.
Let's make it unusable. Let's make it people suspicious about this, and let's people let them just forget about this and go back to their credit cards.
Yeah.
And they are telling people, use your credit cards. If you go to these forums that were hijacked, when people say, "Look, I'm having this problem," first of all, they will not let you say that. But if the 5 minutes that your post is there, they will say, "Just use your credit card." This is the new narrative. So it would have seemed absolutely crazy. I don't know, 10 years ago, 9, 8 years ago. But this is the new normal in Bitcoin land.
But so I was just going to point us back to the optimistic road of the solution always being there in the beginning, and and so rediscovering that solution.
Yeah, and it was difficult. You said people invested and people started accepting Bitcoin because they assumed it could scale. So it was like you could say like implicit contract there that was broken. So you have to explain. This is difficult. You have a lot of obstacles if you want those people that were burned by Bitcoin BTC to understand that that's not the idea. That's not the original idea. But this is the good news that many, if not most, early adopters knew exactly what was happening, and they didn't just go along with it. They said, no, we have to keep it alive. So they did it. In August 2017, this split occurred, and Bitcoin Cash was born. So Bitcoin Cash is just Bitcoin. There's nothing new about it. And sometimes people say, well, it's a better Bitcoin. I don't think it is. It's just Bitcoin, the way it used to be before this Blockstream company took over. And you can, I mean, it's very easy for me to show. I think it's better just to show how it works than to explain.
Right.
Sometimes if you start to explain too much and people are lost, and just look, this is the same as having, this is my pitch. This is the same as having a gold coin in your pocket. Nobody can take it. It's yours. But you can teleport it. And you can fraction it or whatever you like. And you can send it to anyone. And you don't have to ask for permission. And you don't need to open an account. So this is exactly like cash. Peer-to-peer electronic cash.
I've heard that term somewhere. Where was that term? I feel like this is in some kind of white paper or something. Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, it's funny, they wanted to change the white paper. So they tried like a North Korean, they tried something that I think it's fortunately it's not possible to achieve these days. I mean, you can if you are in North Korea, you have this. You are not a lucky guy because why? Because they have this monopoly, and you cannot escape, or it's very difficult to escape. But in the ¿cómo se dice? In the pardon, um, free software or open source code uh, world, you are not. They can try their usual tricks, the things that politicians do,
Right.
but they cannot just kill the idea.
Right.
I mean, you will have to fight for it, and many people are fighting for it, but you cannot kill it as long as you have people that are ready to defend the idea. You are not subject to just one jurisdiction, and
Right.
have to do so. This is their model. This is what they tried again with Bitcoin.
And this is one of the real advantages of having a free market, of having competition in money, which is something that for thousands of years we didn't have. We had, render unto Caesar that which is his, and this was very much the way. When the free market entered the money landscape, all of a sudden we had all these different ideas, slight tweaks, slight nuances that were competing for the best to deliver the best use case. Exactly what you would expect in a market where we had higher competition, bringing the quality of the product
Low
up,
barrier to entry.
low barrier to entry being a feature, not a flaw of the network. But so I wanted to ask you specifically with regards to adoption globally of Bitcoin Cash, because I know that I've read some of articles. I know it's obviously taking off in Japan, where one of your co-evangelists for Bitcoin Cash, Roger Ver, is sometimes based, I guess. But it seems like more and more companies and businesses, small and large, are able to adopt this. So do you have some kind of insight into how that's unfolding?
The number you have, I think it is the most used and most accepted cryptocurrency, and it has to do with the inheritance of the network effect of Bitcoin. So yeah, you can fork the code, but you cannot fork the community, the network effect.
Right.
And you can have, let's say, Facebook, and you say, you may have a better idea. You may say, look, I will fork, let's say Facebook is open source. I will fork it and I will call it Facebook Joel.
Joelbook.
Joelbook.
Joelbook.com. Yeah.
So
it's just me and my mom hanging out there. Joelbook, actually.
It's code, and maybe
maybe
it's great, but people will not use it. Why?
Right.
Because other people are not using it. So in money, it's extremely. It's not all. Of course, you need the properties, the good properties of money there. That's why Bitcoin BTC, I think, will fail in the long run. But if you have the good properties in place, and you have people using it, and it is scalable, it can scale. Well, I think you have you have almost everything. Perhaps the last thing is the last problem is volatility, which is a problem, but I think it will solve itself in the future if you have a big I mean, if you have a larger market cap, you also have tend to have less volatility. So
you see this in
it's a process.
Equities and other
exactly. It's
most
not,
other markets.
It's something that you cannot decide it.
Right.
It's something that will happen perhaps in the future. So yeah, it inherited the many companies that were having all these problems with Bitcoin BTC started as soon as Bitcoin BCH, which is Bitcoin Cash, appeared. They were very, very keen on accepting Bitcoin Cash because they had all these problems with Bitcoin BTC. So we have all these companies, big companies, and we have many people using it that we don't know. We know that there are transactions, but we can't know exactly what are the use cases. I know many, but most of them, I think, we will never know, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, of course.
So people who value privacy, ease of transaction, and a legacy that goes all the way back to the very genesis block, literally, of cryptocurrency might want to check out.
Yeah, and also we shouldn't undervalue the enthusiasts, the early adopters, the people that are I could say, I may say, I don't know if the word to say it, but fanatic about this technology. They are not giving up.
Right.
And so this is that Bitcoin Cash exists today is proof that Satoshi was right. I mean, we can withstand.
Yep.
If we could survive what happened to Bitcoin, I think in the future it will be very difficult to stop. I cannot imagine what they will come up with, but I think we have proof that it's not easy to stop. It's been many years, and they tried many things.
All right. Well, let's add resilience to the virtues of Bitcoin Cash. So, from a man who was crazy enough to buy gold at the beginning of the century, crazy enough to buy Bitcoin at the after the beginning of the second decade of the century, and now is crazy fanatic about Bitcoin Cash. I hope that your good run continues. And Marcelo, I know we can't shake hands, but we're just gonna flagrantly discard the laws here and say thanks very much for stopping by today, mate.
Privilege. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Marcelo.
Bueno.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bonner Private Research Podcast. You can find more conversations like this in the members-only section of our website at bonnerprivateresearch.com. If you would like to contact us, please address compliments and complaints alike to podcast@bonnerprivateresearch.com. We look forward to hearing from you either way. Until next week.